Hi guys, welcome to or back to my channel. My name is Sylvie. Not only am I excited to bring you guys another makeup tutorial, which I haven't done in a really long time, but also a look that I have practiced through the week and worked on and tweaked endlessly. So I'm thrilled to bring you guys the most perfect ultimate Valentine's Day date night look. Let's face it, we're not on a date just for us. It's just as much about the guy, from what I understand. And of course, there's always exceptions to this. Ideally, they want you to look natural and sweet and polished, but still a little bit sultry and sexy. So yeah, I've spent a few days doing different things to come up with the perfectly balanced look for a Valentine's Day date. So I've just gone ahead and prepped my skin with moisturizer. I always like to start off with a really hydrated base, especially because I have very dry skin and I want the makeup to look amazing and last really well. I'm not using a primer because honestly, I feel like most people don't need it unless you are trying to do oil control. But I find just using a really good moisturizer helps to prep my skin. Sorry, I didn't even show you. The Sephora Bright Future Serum Concealer. This is in the shade 11.5 Butterscotch. This one is a really good color correcting shade for me. Just in those areas that I know I tend to get a little bit dark. I want to even that out really well because I'm not going to use a ton of coverage. So I just want to make sure that there's no like shadowiness or grayness coming through. Okay, so I really just had to go change my top because it is a Valentine's Day look and I want to look nice after this. I also forgot to mention that I did my eyebrows before I started this makeup look, just because it's the same thing every time. Just do your eyebrows however you want it. So we're pretty well color corrected. Next, I'm going in with the Armani Luminous Silk Foundation. I recently just did a review video on this. You can go and find it. It's my last one. And this is probably my new favorite foundation of all time. It totally lives up to the hype. So I've got about a pump and a half on my hand, and I'm just taking a thin layer on a dense foundation brush, and I'm sort of painting a thin layer all over my face, starting with the cheeks where I need the most coverage. This one's a really good shade for my skin tone. I have a really hard time finding like a nice medium olive undertone foundation in most foundations. So this was just amazing that they carry a good shade in this foundation line. Don't forget the ears. So I've definitely used up that pump and a half. I'm just taking about a third of a pump more to finish off my forehead. It is such a flawless smoothing foundation. It's perfect for my dry skin because it does have a little bit of a luminosity. And I said this in my review video, but the lighting definitely reflects a lot more glow than it normally shows in real life. I always like to take a little bit down my neck because I want the texture of the face and the neck to match. And then I'm just taking a damp sponge and pressing all of that in. I always, for the most part, like to start foundations with a brush because I feel like I can control the amount and I don't like to go in with too much. I love doing thin layers, and then I'll always press it in with a sponge and I get the best of both worlds. So I think I'll keep it to a pretty natural coverage here. You can build up this foundation beautifully and it still looks really natural. But for this look, I do want to keep a little bit of a balance. Since I'm doing more concealer and smokier eyes, I want to keep at least the skin looking a little bit clean and luminous. Next, I'm going to go in with my e.l.f. Putty Bronzer in the shade Bronze Belle. You can see how well loved this shade is. It's a really good undertone for my skin. So I'm just swirling a little like dome shape contour brush into it. And I'm not going to bother patting off the excess just yet. I just want to place the bronzer where I want it to go. I don't want to bring it down too far because I don't want to drag down my face. I want to keep it pretty lifted. Once I've deposited a lot of the color, I just like to drag it along my forehead. Just get the perimeters there. And this is a really good shade to contour and bronze for my skin. It's not too dark, it's just right. Even then, I still don't pick up too much at a time, because with anything, cream, powder, whatever, the less you pick up, the easier it is to control. And you can always build it up. So when it comes to creams, I really like to do this patting motion, because if I drag too much in crucial areas where I need it to be very well blended, it has the chance of moving the foundation underneath, and I don't want it to look too patchy. So I'm not going overboard with it. Just gonna take a little bit under the jawline. I don't really need to carve out anything. I just wanna define it. So if you have sharp angles on your face, you don't wanna go too harsh with your lines. Just keep it very light and diffused. The whole point of this is to bring definition back to the face. And then I just take it down this, like, see these grooves, the two little grooves down the neck, because I want all the tones of the face to match with my neck and be seamless. And of course, since I have my collarbones and everything out, I will just take a little bit down those grooves and then just lightly blend out any harsh lines with your sponge. The next, I'm going in with the Dior Forever Skin Correct Concealer. This is in the shade 2WO. This is a really full coverage concealer. So I'm gonna just place a little bit in the areas that I want to conceal. And even though this is a full coverage concealer, I love how creamy and hydrating it is, and it never looks dry or cakey. And then I just take my sponge and blend it out. I'm gonna come closer so you guys can see better. So again, always starting off with a small amount is good. Like I said, I want to keep the complexion pretty natural, but with concealer, it's really easy to build up coverage wherever you need it. So keep the foundation light and then build up coverage with the concealer. And this one is a slightly more brightening shade. And especially if you're going on an evening date or any evening event, it's nice to have a little bit of a contrast of the contour and highlight. Highlight the Cupid's bow, the chin, just a little bit over here. I do feel like I need a little bit more coverage just under the eyes, because I feel like as the day goes on, I tend to get a little bit shadowy in those areas. So I just want to ensure that it is well concealed. And then I'm going to go back in with my foundation brush and just pat in those areas where the concealer meets the bronzer. Just make sure everything is well blended and seamless. And then I'm gonna do a cream blush. And for cream blush, I'm gonna use the shade Beige Babe from Maybelline. And I'm gonna take this shade from my View Set palette of all my lipsticks that I have put in here. This is from my Pro Kit, so I've just put a little bit on the back of my hand. That's the shade. It's like a really pretty beigey nude. And then I'm taking another little dense contour looking brush and just tapping it in a bit here. I usually like to do a whole lifted effect. There is a difference between having that sexy lift and a romantic blush. I kind of want something a little bit in between. So the sexy lift goes up here. The romantic blush to me goes more along here and then a little bit over your nose. So I just want to keep it still high up, but I do want to bring it into the cheeks a bit. So let's see if I can achieve this. So I'm just placing the blush where I want it first. So I'm just going on the higher point of my cheekbone and bringing it in, and then just a little bit over the nose. And then if you have any excess left, just wipe it off on your hand, and then you can start patting that in. use a light hand, because if you're really aggressive with this, it might move the foundation underneath. And again, I'm just using that like patting motion. I've still kept the blush placement higher up, but it's still giving me that romantic sort of naturally blushing effect. I'm just going to take a little bit more and intensify that because I wanted to show up in low lighting and on camera for you guys. So I'm just going to take my sponge and press that all in, and I'm just getting rid of any of those edges, making sure that the blush has melted in with the rest of the products. Before we go on to the next steps, I'm just going to take a little bit of my Laura Mercier translucent loose powder. I just have it in the cap here, and I dip a fluffy brush in, tap off the excess, and I'm going to just pounce those creases out of the concealer, and then begin to lightly set those areas down because I don't want to accidentally disturb them while I'm doing the rest of my powder products. So I'm also going in and setting the center of my face. I'm also gonna lightly dust the powder over my cheeks where I have the bronzer and the blush, because this is just gonna help set those areas down a little bit so that my powder, bronzer, and blush can glide really nicely over it. Next, I'm taking my Benefit Hoola bronzer on a fluffy angled brush. Just lightly dip in a few times. I'm just gonna first pat it down in those areas that I want the most depth. Okay, and I am patting it down because I want to deposit the depth of the powder and also sort of set anything underneath that's still sticky. So patting this on is just gonna keep it from moving around. And then when I come down to the jawline, just lightly drag it along and buff it. So I'm literally just taking that bronzer over the areas that I put the cream bronzer. And then sometimes when I tap into the product and I don't want as much on, I'll just tap off the excess on my hand here, and then I can go ahead and do a lighter application. You guys will notice that I never like having too much of a contrast between my foundation and my bronzer. I just think it's a much classier look and it looks flattering on everybody. And then I'm gonna take like a small fluffy-ish but still dense brush, and I'm gonna take that into the bronzer and just hit underneath the lips. Now what I want to achieve here is sultry, pouty lips without looking like a crazy person who has overlined their lips to an unnatural state. Doing the bronzer gives you that natural pouty shadow. And I just take a little bit underneath my nose. I always contour the tip of my nose, and it gives it that cute little button lift. And then I like to just take my sponge over it so it doesn't look too harsh. I'm taking this sort of brownie red eyeshadow, so I just take that and start to contour out my lips. This is acting as a lip liner, but because it's with a powder, you're able to blend it better. It's more sheer. I'll always overline the bottom lip more, but the top lip I like to keep closer to my natural lip line. I think that's a more flattering way to overline your lips, because I don't know about you guys, but I really dislike that like pillowy lip look when it's not natural. You can always tell, and it looks awful. When I get to the Cupid's bow, I don't like to make it like really big. I take the lighter Hoola bronzer and I just take it over the Cupid's bow because I want the slightest shadow but not too much. And this is really great to do with a powder and not a pencil, because once you've done your lipstick, it's virtually not gonna show too much. It's just gonna add the littlest bit of shadow. So that's already like really transformed the lips, and it still doesn't look too crazy. And you can honestly just go ahead and put like your favorite lip gloss on top of this, and you don't have to do too much to it, but I'll show you what I do with this at the end. Next, I'm going in with the Maybelline Master Chrome Highlight in the shade Molten Peach. I also have this one depotted. It is just this like beautiful peachy highlight. It looks super reflective, and it does have some shimmer particles, but I really like that for this look. I feel like it's kind of romantic. So I'm taking the tiniest bit on my brush, and then I tap off the excess. And then I just pop it right here. Not that I need a lot more glow. Just hitting the high points of the cheeks. And then taking a little bit on the Cupid's bow. And you can actually see the effect here where the Hoola bronzer is just going on top, but then you still get the highlight of the Cupid's bow. So you get this really beautiful natural contour look. Before I go on with blush, I just want to bring down the shine here a little bit more and add a tiny bit more coverage. So I'm going to use my Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Finish Powder in the shade Medium, which is just this like medium beige shade. So this is just going to add a tiniest bit more coverage and give you a smooth out filtered look. You can honestly just go ahead and use any pressed powder that you have. This is just what I have right now, and it's good to use something a little bit lighter so that you're not taking away from that highlighted look. I'm just gonna tone this contour down a little bit. It's starting to look a little crazy. Next, I'm taking my Patrick Ta Monochrome Velvet Blush in the shade She's Seductive. A really beautiful neutral mauvey undertone. So I'm just taking some on a fluffy blush brush, taking the excess off, and I'm literally placing that in those areas that I did the cream blush. And then just taking that sponge again and blending out the edges. Now for the eyes, I want to start off using that same lipstick that I used as a cream blush. Take a little bit on like a fluffy brush like this. I want to start patting that onto the lid because it acts like a base and holds the powders, and it also adds more depth and luminosity to the eye look, and it doesn't make it look flat. So it doesn't look like all that much, but it will really help the eyeshadow to pop more. So I'm just focusing that on the outer edge. Okay, and then just dragging that out, and whatever's left, just bring it in more. Next, I'm gonna take my Patrick Ta blush, and the whole point is just to keep the tones of the face the same as the eyes, and I'm just patting that blush with a fluffy brush, focusing that on the crease, mostly on the outer edge. And once most of that powder has been deposited, I just drag it out and blend out the edges. If you're worried about having patchy blending, a really easy way to do it is just to use the same patting motion. It just kind of blends it for you. So that's kind of what I do. I'm not doing like a lot of circles or anything. I just want to keep things light. A way to still get a sultry eye shape is, instead of just keeping this crease shadow out in the outer corners, at least this is what it does for my eye shape. You can try out if it works for your eye shape, because it might look a little bit different. I'll always bring that shadow in to the corners of my eyes. And actually, a really good way to do this would be just with your bronzer. That when you're bronzing your face, you can just do this to your eyes to give it that definition. So it's already given me a lot of shade, and I haven't even used a lot of dark eyeshadows. So I'm just taking that Hoola bronzer and I'm just further defining that crease. And I'm not like bringing it down and around. I'm sort of keeping the crease lifted. Next, I'm going in with this like purpley plum shadow and is taking it on this dome shaped brush. And I'm going to start to smoke out the upper lid a little bit. So I'm patting it in the outer corner. So that's where I've placed it, okay? So once I've got most of that shadow placed, and I'm making sure that I'm not bringing it down. And the way that you make sure to not bring it down is to just keep aiming to keep your brush higher up. Because I feel like if I try to place it exactly where I want it, the bristles of the brush always bring it down a little bit. So I'm always aiming to keep it higher. So once I've got most of that color deposited, start to slowly buff and blend out the edges. Now I want to lift the eye, and I'm just wiping off any excess powder left on my hand, and I'm buffing out that edge. And then to help blend it, I'm taking more of that Patrick Ta blush, and I'm just blending the edges. So it's given us that nice diffused look. And then you can just take your blender, pat out underneath, clean up that eyeshadow, okay? So you can go as high or low or angled as you want. I like a pretty nice angle here, just from the outer corner of my eyes going up. I'm just gonna do that to the other eye and be right back. Okay, so that's what I have going on for this shape. And then I want to intensify the lash line a little bit more. I'm just going to take this dark brown eyeliner. This is just from Modern Basics. I'm going to pop that just at the root of my lashes. And then I'm taking my NYX Lift and Snatch brow pen, which is what I use for my brows, and I'm just locking that in. And I'm drawing like this line on the inner corner, okay, just to give it a more like cat eye defined look. And I'm basically taking it even closer to the lash line and defining that. So I love that this is in the shade Brunette, and it's like the perfect deep brown to define the lash line. And then I'm just taking that plummy shade on like a flat definer brush, and I'm blending out those edges. Next, I'm just taking a champagne-y highlight shade. This is the Wet n Wild Precious Petals, and I'm just hitting that inner corner. Doesn't look like much in this brightness, but it'll really catch the light during the night. And whatever's left over, I'll just highlight under the brow bone. Now is my favorite part. Taking the NYX Ultimate Multi-Finish palette, which is this. I don't even know if this is available anymore. This one's in the Sugar High shades. I pretty much just used these 4 shades. They're like the most beautiful high-end shimmers. So I'm just going to show you this one if I have any space left on my hand. It's the most beautiful shimmer shade. It's got these fine glitter particles. So first I'm going to go ahead and take this purple shade, and I'm just going to take it on my hand, and I'm going to place this right over top. You see how beautiful that is? So I'm taking that on pretty much most of my lid. Look at how pretty and reflective that is. And then just to top that off, I'm taking this pinkier shade, and I'm going to put that more in the center just to give it a more pinky reflect. I'm going to go ahead and just do my mascara. I've already curled my lashes, so I'm going to go and use my L'Oreal Voluminous mascara primer first, and then I'm going in with the NARS Climax Extreme mascara. This is just the mini that I have, So I was gonna go in with some individual false lashes, but I think I'm pretty happy with how just the mascara looks. I don't often wear false lashes, so honestly, if that's not what you're into, don't do it. I think that did a really good job on its own. I'm actually not gonna do any mascara on the bottom lashes. I'm just gonna smoke it out a little bit. Again, I don't want to drag down the eye. I want to still keep it looking soft and romantic. So I'm going to take that Hoola bronzer and just run it underneath. It's still going to give you that smoky, sultry look, but you're not going to look like a crazy person. So that's lightly defined. I'm going to go into that plum shade and just get the outer corners. I think I want to bring that in a little bit more. And then I have this trick that I like to do where I'm taking that NYX liner. I like to do a tiny little line and then just draw like one little lash there. I used to do this all the time, but it just gives you a little bit more defined of a look. It makes you look like you have a little flirty lash underneath there. If you've made it a little too harsh, you can always just go and blend that out. Okay, so that's the eye look done. I'm really happy with that. I think it's a really romantic and soft way of doing a smokier eye. So I can finish off the face now. I'm just gonna go in with a little bit more translucent powder in those areas that I've gotten shinier. And I'm gonna actually take a little bit of my Milani Romantic Rose blush. This is another really beautiful neutral blush. It's very like light pink, but not too crazy. That's my motto for the day. And then I always take a little bit of whatever blush I've used on my face and run it through the crease. And if you feel like you've got any harsh edges on your eyeshadow, you can always take your sponge and just bounce it out. Now for the lips, I don't have to do too much here. I'm gonna first fill in the lips with my Milani lip liner in All Natural. And then I'm taking my NYX lip liner in the shade Urban Cafe, which is a little bit deeper. And I don't have to take this everywhere. I'm just lightly defining where I want to. And I love just doing this like inner lip area. It gives this like really pretty defined look without having to go and like overline everything. I think I want to keep with the theme and go with that Beige Babe lipstick. This just kind of matches the tones of the face. And I love that it's such a neutral pink. It's not too overwhelming and it's perfect for my skin tone. And because I can't help myself, I always like to do my blush on the lips trick, where I take whatever blush I've used on the face and just put it on the lips. And this just brings all the tones together again. Even with the hair, I just kept it really simple. A loose bend in the hair. So that is the completed look. I'm in love with this whole look. It's everything that I imagined the perfect Valentine's Day look would be. The hair and the makeup I feel like looks super romantic, but still a little bit sexy and sultry. I don't need to go on too much about this, but I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and found this helpful. If you do end up recreating this for Valentine's Day or just any other day or date night look, I would love to see it. Post it on your Instagram and tag me at SylvieBothaMakeup. I would love to see what you guys come up with. If you guys have any questions or comments or thoughts, please leave them down below. As always, I would love if you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content. I have so much more planned, but please also send me a message on anything that you'd like to see next. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!